We are so excited to have you all join us for this year's Outride Summit. My name is Esther Walker, and I oversee Outride's research and evaluation initiatives. To those of you that are here in person, as well as those of you that are tuning in online across the country and across the world, we are really looking forward to sharing all of this amazing work, both through the research programs as well as the amazing school and community programs, and all of the incredible work they're doing to really show and understand the impact of cycling on our social, emotional, and cognitive well-being. But before I dive in any further, we're going to hear a quick message from Outride's founder and the founder of Specialized, Mike Sinyard.
Hello, I'm Mike Sinyard. I'm the founder of Outride. Welcome to the 2024 Outride Summit. Thank you all for all of your great support. And here we are in a replica of my garage, Specialized, because this is the 50th anniversary. So, and really appropriate that we're here talking about Outride. And Outride started 12 years ago, really from the realization that a lot of the kids with ADHD, and I was one of those kids, and some of my kids were really not diagnosed or misdiagnosed, and that the belief is that we're over-medicating our children. And I believe that we'll look back 4 or 5 years from now and think, oh my God, what were we doing? We only wanted to do the right thing. And that's how Outride started 12 years ago. Contacting some doctors at Harvard Medical and working with them in all that time, and working with thousands of kids every year. And thanks to everybody's support, we have about 50,000 kids that go through the program every year. And I'm so thankful for all energy that you're all bringing to this. And one of the things that we know now, and we're going to do further work on, we're going to even talk during this seminar, is that not only is it the youth, but maybe even more profound is the aging adults. And I said, what does success look like? Success would be that your next door neighbors, and not just in the United States, but around the world, really understand the healing power of the bicycle, not only for youth, but for all ages. And it's so great, and particularly a time with all the stresses in the world, this is what we need. This is what we need, and it's so available and a communal thing. You think about the power of the bicycle and what that does. All exercise is good, but cycling specifically, because of the balance and the kind of the Zen-like rotation of the pedals, is so powerful. And huge gratitude from all of us around the world for all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And he couldn't be here today, but this is a program and organization that is near and dear to his heart. And so really just want to echo the thank you on behalf of the entire Outride organization and all of the schools and communities that we work with for your support. And for those of you who may just be learning about Outride for the first time, we're a nonprofit organization that provides research, cycling programs, and community funding to empower all people to experience the social, emotional, and cognitive benefits of cycling. And Outride has been really, really proud to play a role in introducing cycling and its benefits to, as Mike said, over 50,000 youth a year. And in fact, we just wrapped an amazing couple of days here with our school partners, welcoming and training our newest cohort of Riding for Focus schools from all across the country. So let's welcome them here, give them a big round of applause. And they will be bringing cycling to middle schools, to their communities all across the country this fall. So we are so excited to welcome them to the Outride community. And in this work, we've also seen that excitement and joy that comes with cycling, isn't just with students, isn't just with the youth. it can extend, as we've heard throughout the week, to their parents, their grandparents, caregivers, teachers, and beyond, truly highlighting the intergenerational power of cycling. And cycling is truly a lifetime activity, something you can pursue across the lifespan and with its profound effects on health and well-being. So this year, we're really excited to not only share presentations on the benefits of physical activity and cycling for youth, but also why it's an important activity to continue where possible as you age. So today, if you weren't able to take a glance at the agenda on the website, you can scan the QR code here, or for those virtual attendees, the URL is at the bottom. You'll hear from a wide range of researchers and incredible presenters focused on topics ranging from the role of physical activity and cycling on aging well, to the importance of access to nature on well-being, to the latest updates on what we are learning from our school and community partners all across the country. All with this theme of the importance of getting outside and moving your body and the incredible power it has not only for your physical health, but for your mental health as well. So we really hope you learned something you can take back to your communities. And with that, we are so excited to start everything off with our first keynote speaker here, Professor Norman Lazarus. Dr. Lazarus is 88 years old. He is a medical doctor and scientist who has spent the last 20 years as part of a research team at King's College London Guy's campus, doing research on how to age as optimally as possible. Norman has worked in academia, industry as the head of diabetes research, biochemical research, and cell biology, and government advisor to the Minister of Health on food toxicology. He has also been on BBC Radio and TV, and has also appeared alongside Chris Hemsworth on the Disney Plus series on health called Limitless. Norman has walked many long-distance paths in the UK, New Zealand, and South Africa, and was the Audax UK Veteran Cycling Champion in 2001. I'll have to fact-check me on that year. He really enjoys talking to people, so be sure to catch him in the expo after the presentations, and is also the author of a Sunday Times bestseller, The Lazarus Strategy. So welcome, Dr. Lazarus, and thanks again for joining us.
Are we okay?
Yep, we're good.
That way, yeah. Thank you. Good morning. Coming to the States is like visiting a cousin I haven't seen for a very long time. I met my wife here. We were studying at the same university doing PhDs. My children were born here. And we moved back to the United Kingdom because I found a better job there. I'm sorry. What is it? I think we'll start immediately with the first slide, and you see that I've already made a big mistake because I'm asking the audience a rhetorical question when in fact I should be answering this question, which is crazy, okay? So I think what I'll do is I'll answer this question. What is this talk about? I'm sure all of you have been to many, many talks, but this talk is different. Not because I'm probably the most handsome talker that you've met in any of these talks, of course. Thank you. But because it's about you, and you, and you, and everybody listening. And I think that's something to contemplate as I go through. When I was a young fella, about 5, my mother, who was extremely clever and ran her own business, for some reason would go to a fortune teller to find out what was going to happen to her family. And I'm sure she went there just to get some reassurance rather than believe anything. that was being told. In any case, what fortune teller was going to tell you something bad? They'd lose all their clients. So I'm going to be a bit of a fortune teller here today. If I can measure certain parameters within you, I can predict with a high probability what sort of projection your lifestyle and your aging lifestyle will be. It's nothing to be worried about. I mean, it's nice to learn something about all of us. And so come along with me with the ride, okay? I'll walk you through about 20 years of thinking about aging, and let's enjoy the trip, a serious trip, but let's enjoy it as we stride down the corridors of my mind. When I was 70, I realized that the cycling group that I cycled with were not developing the diseases that they should develop from what I'd been taught at university. And at 70, I did what any normal 70-year-old would do. I started knocking on every university I could come to saying, hey, why don't you do research on cyclists? And you can imagine what a reception I got. Eventually I met somebody, excuse me, I'm still not quite recovered from my trip, so if I make a mess up of this, blame the trip, please. Eventually I met Stephen Harridge. You can tell which one is Stephen, can't you? Anyway, he's the professor at Guy's. He's an ex-UK junior hurdles champion. And he decided, yes, we'd put together a program on and investigating the effects of cycling. And we chose cycling because I was a cyclist and all my mates were cyclists. Oh, that was just a quick, the book that I wrote that Esther was talking about. Okay, this is just to show that we do what we preach, and it's something listening to your talks yesterday, and for what it's worth, I was tremendously impressed with them. And you got me thinking about things that I hadn't thought before, and thank you very much. And some of that might come up while I'm going through these slides. But we practice what we preach, okay, very important. This is the team ending the 100-kilometer bike ride from London to Brighton in, I think it was September last year, and we'll probably be going again this year. I might have to walk the last couple of miles, but we'll just see what happens. But practice what we preach. Big problem. How do we define optimal aging? You notice throughout this talk, I'm never going to talk about health because I don't know what health is. And you say, well, how come you haven't discovered what health is? Yes, it's too difficult to define. It's a will-o'-the-wisp. It just goes like mist through the... So what I'm going to define it is your functional capacity, because ultimately that defines whether we're going to live a productive life in our old age or even in our young age or not. It's how much function have you got. That's all I'm interested in. Your function relative to your age. Very important, remember. At my age, my function is down here. At your age, your function is down here. But for both of us, the function is optimal for age, okay? So the next question is then, I know a lot of nonsense is spoken about chronological age and biological age. Please forget it. It's just nonsense. So let's ask ourselves then, what can we do to ensure that we maintain biological age? In other words, our functionality optimal for our age. We cannot hope to be anything other than we're not, okay, through the decades of our lives. And actually, of course, it overlaps somewhat with what you were all talking about last night, last afternoon, because it's functional capacity that you're talking about in your kids. How do you maximize their functional capacity at their age? In all aspects of what you might envisage functional capacity, but I think all of us would come to quite a good definition of what we mean by that. You disturbed me yesterday. I mean, not woke me up. You disturbed me mentally yesterday. And I'll try and point out why in the slide. This is a terrible slide. Terrible in the sense that, in fact, it's a prediction. It lays down the groundwork of what your future biological, of what your future functional capacity can be. Let me just, maybe we should make that a flag. Let me just spend some time on this. I might have to go over time there. Don't get cross. I mean, if you know what Esther's like when she's not cross, imagine what she's going to be like when she's cross. Yeah. When I was at school and university, I had met some fantastic teachers. And listening to you yesterday, without trying to be funny or anything, I think I heard some great people and some great talking there. Very impressive. And the subjects that I really began to like were partly responsible as a result of the teacher. And the two subjects that I really enjoyed were maths, and the other one was right on the other side was English. And I was enthused with them and followed them and did everything that any young person would do, but I abandoned them, okay, and I did something else. It made not a whit of difference to my development. So what's this great thing that I was saying about this terrible slide? This is not about a subject teaching, as you all already know, but I would just like to emphasize. This is a lifestyle. And a lifestyle cannot be abandoned like a subject and still allow you to lead a life that can be optimal. It is a lifetime commitment. Okay? If you stop doing it, you immediately fall back to where you were before. And of course, I'm admiring you. Part of my admiration of you is that you're trying to ensure that you're instilling a lifetime commitment, because it must go into adulthood. If it doesn't go into adulthood, it is lost. Three Pillars of Health Aging, a rubbish title. I put it there to remind me that it was a rubbish title. These are the Trinity. And I don't mean that in any religious sense. You cannot separate these. And when I heard you talking, or some of you talking yesterday, you were entering this biological system. You were entering it sometimes on this side through cycling, sometimes through here trying to protect mental health problems. Very little on that side in terms of food. But they must all be present. Why? Food. We are products of our environment. We've forgotten that. When Homo emerged 40,000 years from now, or ago, not from now, 40,000 years, it feels like ago. Anyway, 40,000 years ago, they emerged into an environment with which they could, in fact, survive. Okay? And they survived because the food that they needed to survive was there. So already the interaction between us and the environment is an inextricable link which we've broken. Not only do we need carbohydrates, proteins and fats, but hidden in there are things like vitamin C, which we can't make, but is absolutely intrinsic to our body. We absolutely need it, right? I mean, we make chemicals now so that we don't have to worry about the environment, but we've forgotten why we need. We need sunlight, right? Otherwise we won't make vitamin D. And the number of people I've treated for vitamin D lack because they don't allow any sunlight in them is quite a large number. So we are absolutely linked to environment through our food. Here. Homo didn't cycle. I'm sure they would have if there had been a cycle around. I mean, they just run. But we wouldn't have survived if our physiology hadn't been sufficiently for us to catch prey, for us to eat, for us to lie down, to wake up, hunger, go out, catch prey. And everybody in this room is superbly adapted for catching prey. You don't have to run like an Olympic runner because you hunt. Homo always did, hunted as a group. But you needed sufficient physiology, you needed sufficient ability to be able to chase and run and catch prey. Intrinsic. Physiology is not physical activity is not something you're adding. Okay, you are supplying something that has to be there in order for us to utilize everything we have as if we are still going to catch prey. Okay? So physical activity is absolutely intrinsic to our well-being. I'm not going to discuss mental health today. It's too complicated for me. And as you can see, I really haven't got the ability to think very well today. So I'm going to leave it there and concentrate on the other two aspects. So can we use the population enlarged to study this? You know, can I just go out and get a whole population and study, what's happening to you? Why are you changing? But I need to know this. I mean, I've spent such a long time on that last slide, obviously to point out to you that I really need to know what your food status and how you're exercising, because they are intrinsic to what your ability to function is. So what I'm going to do is, what happens if we lose contact with this, as we have, right? We don't think about food. Perhaps some of us do. I certainly do. Food is intrinsic to my well-being, and therefore what goes in my mouth is probably one of the most important things around. This is UK data. Don't shoot me. It's not my data. It's UK data, but it can be data virtually anywhere in the West of the world. Age here. 8%, the orange is obesity, the purple is overweight. These are all normal weight. So, quick summary, somewhere between here and here, something happens, people go crazy, meet something, and then eventually you end up with 25 of that order, 25% of the population who in fact are operating at the correct weight for their age. Is it neutral? You know, does it matter? I mean, what does it matter? You can still go to work, you can still have kids, you can still, I don't know, go on holiday to Niagara Falls or whatever it is. But obesity is linked to all these diseases. You can read them. I'm not going to go through them. So you can see it's not neutral. And by abandoning from where our natural history is we've put ourselves in a terrible condition. Physical activity, I'm not going to go through what physical activity, through all the parts that physical activity affects. I'm just going to show you 3 slides. And I'm putting up these slides. They look like butcher shop slides, don't they? And I apologize. I'm a medic. What do I know? And I want you to remember these slides forever, please. The first slide is an MRI scan through the thigh, okay, boom. So you're looking at the thigh head on like that, okay, and I'll orient you. That round thing there is the femur going through your leg. The dark is muscle, right? The white is the fat under your skin. There's an age, a 31-year-old non-exercising male. These are females and some are males. It doesn't matter because it doesn't make any difference, okay? Look at that after an interval. It's a different person, but after an interval of 35 years, you begin to see changes, don't you? You can begin to see more fat. You begin to see the muscle being infiltrated and it's beginning to disintegrate. And of course, that takes 34 years. I mean, your biological system is so geared, so resilient that it's trying to resist all of this. So that it takes us an enormous long time to present, and then we say, that's because you're aging. Okay? It's not because you're aging. It's because of your lifestyle. And if you follow it through, it accelerates. That was 34 years. That is how much? I can't remember how many years, 15 years or whatever it is. And then down to 7 years or something, okay? So you begin to accelerate. Look what you end up. Hardly any muscle at all. Put that in your mind. It starts from 31 years of age. 82 years old. I recognize it. That's Norman. Okay? So I want you to compare this to this. Look at me. I mean, if you, in the street, if you pass me, you wouldn't even notice you passed me. There's nothing about me that's even worthwhile thing about it. There's nothing magical about my physiology. I just cycle a bike. And look what's happened. Okay? Next slide. Again, just forget about all this. I don't want you to look at this. I put this up here to show how clever I can be, but I just want you to look above over here, okay? It says younger untrained. We're back to a young untrained person, and now we've got the electron microscope, and we're going down and we're looking. I wonder what your nucleus of your muscle cell likes, and I hope there's a sufficient biologist here, and I think other people know that a nucleus looks like, you know. And we've got an untrained 80-year-old. Look at the shape of that nucleus. Look at the shape of that nucleus. Unexerciser, non-exerciser. Changes already starting at 31 years of age. And it makes no difference how long you go on, the change remains. 30, how much? 32. Nice, round football nucleus. This is, sorry, I'm in the wrong place, soccer. The soccer nucleus, American football. Bad luck, okay. But you see again, older. So right from the beginning, there's a divergence between those of us who exercise, who cycle, and those who not, and it lasts a lifetime in that divergence. And then the last one in this section. Oh yes, I put this up because I love medical speak, you know. I'm sorry I'm not engaging it with you today. I'm slipping, obviously, but yeah. submaximal cardiopulmonary exercise, standing protects. Forget all of that. This is a fancy way of asking whether patients can survive an operation. If you come in for an operation, I as a doctor have a look at you and say, are you going to survive? You go, how do I know? You say, well, okay, what I'm going to do, VO2, everybody familiar with what VO2 means? I'm sure if in the bike it is. It simply means the maximum amount of oxygen that you can push through the body when you're operating or exercising maximally. That's all it means. And you can see the ability to push oxygen through your body allows all your organs to operate maximally as well. Okay, so it's just a function. If you can do that, then I'll say to you, yeah, you are fine. I'll measure your VO2 max. You remember one of my predictions? I said I could predict what's going to happen to you. If I know your VO2 max, I can predict what's going to happen to you. And it's known that if your VO2 max reaches this level, that you can only move 10 milliliters per kilogram per minute, you are in big trouble if you ever come to be under surgery, and you probably won't be operated on at all because you're too risky. Okay. Overeating, exercise, common diseases, lack of exercise, loss of optimal function. In particular, I showed you muscle mass, but I could have showed you many more. Changes, this is important, take place at a very early age, 31, you know. And again, if you look at a 31, there's no difference between a 31 and an exerciser, provided you don't look too deeply. You know what I mean? They both got to work, they both got to do this, they do that, dance, I don't know. But there's an enormous difference going on below the surface, an enormous difference. Right. So, why worry? Ah, yes, when I was listening to the founder speak, he was saying we are over-medicalized in what I think was AD, whatever it was, the deficiency disorder. Of course we over-medicalized. We over-medicalized to agree that we don't even begin to realize how over-medicalized we are. Is exercise going to help any of this? Otherwise, why are we doing it? For God's sakes. How many medications people take per week by age? Right? Pink is none. So let's concentrate on the pink. And there's the ages. So 16, 24, you go long pink, 80%. Why not 100%? Well, I mean, people get born with diseases that you've got to treat in the young age and all that sort of stuff. And you never get 100% of people who haven't got anything at any age. But 80% is quite a big percentage of not being treated. It's a great percentage, actually. I would take that if somebody offered me 80%. Right, let's go down the ages and let's stop somewhere here, 55 to 64, because I know there's nobody in the audience between 55 and 65. Yeah, you all look about 20. Okay, great. Already 30% of the general population, 30%, are the only ones not taking medicine. Look at me. 2%, right? Let's go to the red. I won't go in the middle. I'll go to the red. This is, look. Over 20% are taking 8 medicines or more, and you can work out the percentage as you're going over there. If you don't think that's over-medicalization, then I don't know what is. And the belief, here's the question, are the medicines that are used to treat some of the diseases which I'm coming on to curable or not? How many believe that medicines are curable? Just your hands up, I don't know. great. They're not curable, they treat symptoms, they never treat the underlying disease in 99% of the cases. Don't put up your hand and say, I know one disease. Sure you do, I know it, but most diseases, you treat the symptoms. Oh, how did that happen? So we come down to it now. We can't study the general population. And it's a problem. Because you can see who we're going to study, because all those people are already taking medicines. Okay? So, before we can do that, we saw that the VO2 max predicts whether you can undergo surgery or not. Okay? So the VO2 max is some indicator of what your functional capacity is. So I wonder what the association is between your VO2 max and your ability to resist disease. It's a fair question. I'm moving oxygen. If I move oxygen, as I should be moving oxygen, what are the chances that exercise is going to help me? Otherwise, why are we doing all this? Okay? That's why you're doing all the things you're doing. If VO2, if exercise is not going to help you in those three parameters which we studied previously, that is the answer. I don't know who that is on a bike, but that's how the way we measure VO2 max, right? And I think there's a bike outside there where you can pedal against the resistance. It's quite good. So what you do is you pedal against the resistance and you're hooked up to that computer and all the rest of it, and the computer spits out a number, and that's your VO2 max, okay? If you think that other slide I showed you had consequences inside it which were not readily apparent, this slide is even worse, and I'm going to take you through it step by step, okay? The way you do this is you get you want to see what is the effect of exercise on disease in the population. So you go and get the whole of, where we're in San Jose or San Tropez, anyway, wherever we are. Where? Tropez? San Jose. All right. Get a whole population, 10, 20,000 people. You're going, okay, we're going to study these people for 8, 9 years and see what happens to them, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, I wonder what the influence of exercise is on the health of these people, or I'm using health there, but I mean on the diseases of these people and what causes them to die, okay? Simple question again. So you can see, let's start here. This is a line I want you to look at. I might as well point, this is 20,000 men and 3,000 women. This was done in the United States. I don't quite know what population this, you'd probably know. Where there 3,000 men and 10,000 women? I mean, if I was a man, I wouldn't go and live there. But anyway, I don't know where it is, but it's an American study, and it's done about 34 years ago. Okay? So let's go through this now, because this is where the fortune teller arrives. Milliliters, you remember the 10 about operations? So the 10 is somewhere down here, it's off scale, okay. Right, at this low level, the big bar is the number of men who died at this level, and that small bar is the number of women who died at that level. So what happens if you improve your VO2 max? You're exercising a bit more. That's the number of people who died at that level, the number of women. Exercise a bit more, comes down. Exercise a bit more, comes down. And about here, and I'm just going to call it a set point, let's not worry about what value. About here, it flattens out, and you can exercise from now until Christmas, and it's not going to make any difference. Okay. And of course, it had to be like that, because otherwise I wouldn't be worried about my future. I'd know if I'm exercising, nothing's ever going to happen to me, and I'd live forever. There's got to be things which are not exercise dependent that are going to cause you harm. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, anybody with exercise would be running around forever, okay? So you see now, we have two sections. On the right, I have some diseases that are obviously affected by exercise, and on the left, I've got those which I can't do anything about. Sorry about that. Nothing you can do. It's part of living. It's part of the natural of an organism. So let's talk about this side here. What can't we affect? And I've only listed some of them. I could go down. It's infections, cancers, genetic disease, autoimmune, hit by a bus, something else, something else. And these diseases are quite rare. In other words, there's lots of them, okay? But they're quite rare. Now, the number of people in 10,000 people who had them would be small. These ones are the ones where the hospitals are full of. These ones are the ones that are affected by exercise. These ones are the ones that you can have control over. There are very few things in life that you can have control over, but this side you can have control over. But remember, biology is a probability exercise, a probability science. If I stop smoking, will I get lung cancer? Probability, no, but the chances are still there. Okay, you never get anything to zero. So because you don't do something, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen to you. So the probability of these things having great effect on you is higher on that side. These are all those lifestyle diseases which I showed in the slide before. Diabetes, heart, vascular, strokes, Alzheimer's. I could go through them, the ones that you all know that are around you all over the place. Okay, so now we've got to decide, let's get some cyclists and study them, right? Let's see whether that graph I showed you means anything. Maybe it's just a lot of nonsense. So again, I don't know who the test man is there. So we got 84 males, 41 females. It's very hard. This is Audax people. Audax is long distance that I do. A long distance is, who was I talking to? Yes, to Leslie. And she thought long distance was 150K, but it turns out long distance is, up to 1,400 kilometers at one time. Okay, so these are long distance, and it's hard to get female riders in there. We had to ride, anybody who came, and I'm one of the people, had to ride 100 kilometers, female 60 kilometers, again, not because we didn't think that females couldn't ride 100 kilometers, but we were trying to get as many as we could in from Audax. And Audax is not a very, very popular cycling sport, if I can put it that way. It's not like velodrome and road racing. So anyway, that's what we ended up. And you can see the average monthly distances were around about 600 kilometers, which is quite a reasonable distance, I would suppose, if you think about it. And remember now, we're looking for people, right? Remember the graph? We're looking for people who are doing sufficient exercise so that they will not be susceptible to the diseases that were on the right-hand side, okay? So we've gone right over here so that we're way past that set point so we can be sure to see whether exercise has any effect. You were talking yesterday about, when you have kids, somebody says, no, I don't want to do it anymore and walks away. You should try adults. I'd stick to kids if I were you. Adults just disappear. And we had this over COVID. Gone, I don't know, they went back to Denmark or wherever they came from. Some just moved house. We couldn't find them, and we tried our best, and we managed to get to do some of them, but you can see we ended up with 82, with the rest being lost. We don't know. So unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. I can only tell you these are the 82 that came back, okay? Or not that came back, that we could find and were willing to test. So it's not a big sample in terms of the population, but it's the only sample there is anywhere in which every person within that study has been defined in terms of VO2 max to the nth degree. Okay. There's no other study. This is a longitudinal study. It's a 9-year longitudinal study. We brought them back. Right, so after 9 years, surprised they aged. Look at that. They went from 63 to 72. I mean, what more can you ask? Success. You see, of course, the cycling volume went down. And for all of those who use cycling in your young age, be prepared. It's going to go down. Oh, look at this. I think I shrunk a little bit too. You can imagine what I looked like before 9 years ago. Just think of me like about 6'2" or something. And I've shrunk, can't do anything about that. My BMI I did. The interesting thing, it surprised us, everybody gained, is it 4 kilograms or about 3-point-something kilograms of fat? And nobody knows where that came from, because we've got people riding 600 kilometers, So the body's doing something funny which we don't understand. But more importantly than that, I'm going out cycling with Esther later, and of course, as you can see, she's got an enormous muscles, and here I am, lean body mass is muscle mass, lean body mass, 5 kilograms of my muscle mass has gone in 9 years. And I want to tell you, in the next couple of years, it's just going to get lower and lower. So what we've got here is an effect that exercise cannot counter. It's part of aging. Okay? So there's something that exercise can do, and something that it can't. This is a killer, it really is. I'm so disappointed that I'm walking up more hills now than I've ever walked before. And we examined them, but before we did full testing, we found that some had no diseases and some had developed diseases. You remember the chart? This side, you're going to get the common disease are going to go. This side, you can't do anything about. Sorry. And whoop, what have I done? And these are the diseases. I'm not going to go through them in detail. I just want you to look at a couple of things, and this is one of the unfortunate things about exercise. Okay, it's not only cycling. If you look up in the literature what diseases do athletes get and everything, you find they get heart problems. They get cardiac arrhythmia, they get bradycardias, they get left ventricular function disorders. So it's one of the problems, and we think it's due to exercise. We don't think it's just a developmental disease, that there are some people who, when they exercise, get vascular disease. And if you follow the athletes closely as I do, you'll find there are a lot of them, in fact, who do have heart disease. And then, of course, there were all these other diseases on the right, on the left here, which we can't have much control over. So we made 3 groups. And we called 35 of us are super ages. It's one of the mysteries. Why haven't I'm not complaining, why haven't I developed some sort of disease according to the projections? I cannot answer that. You say, genes. No. I suppose if I wanted to know genes, I'd have to have about 250,000 at least in order to sort genes. But I don't think it's genes at all, because we did a quick survey and we couldn't find any difference here than we did here. And they're all the same age spread. In other words, it's not the oldies who were down here and the younger ones which were down here. It was the whole spread, okay? Even with disease, right, if you can control the symptoms, no impact, you can maintain function fully. In other words, you can maintain function that I cannot differentiate you from this. You can come with disease, but when I put you on the bike, and you could see, we got them when they could do 100 kilometers. They could only come in when they did 100 kilometers. They could only come in if they did 60 kilometers riding, and they were doing all that. This one I've put in red. You know, you talk about, and somebody was talking about yesterday, I think it was Alex, who was, is he there? I don't know, about how resilient kids are and what they do. Well, here, oldies with extreme high resilience as well. These are very severe diseases, right? And yet they are cycling as if they're not there. What will happen, we're going to follow them up for the next 4 years, what will happen, whether these get worse because they may be due to the cycling, we don't know, but it'll be an interesting thing. But all of these people and these people, right, they're only ordinary people, they're out there cycling in spite of these factors which are affecting the functionality. I thought I'd show you the VO2 max. You've been on about VO2 max, and you remember 10 is where you're going to get no surgery, which is down here. These are the VO2 max of all of them. The green are the greens, there's the orange, and the reds are in here. And you see there's no difference between the groups. You can't tell who is who there. The VO2 maxes all fall within a plane running like that. You see they're all falling at virtually the same rate. Okay, and it's interesting that, this lady here had aortic stenosis. She had to go and get an operation, came out, and has jumped somewhere way up there. Again, went till the last moments, until she couldn't cycle anymore, had an operation, and because she was in such great physical shape, she recovered very, very quickly. And you can see that, I suppose, if we take them as a group, let's say 10 is over here somewhere, okay? You can see these are going to intersect 10 at about 90 years of age as a group, which I think is fine. You know, if I gave you 90 years, everybody in this place would take it. I certainly would still. And you say, oh, no, Norman, they kidded you. They weren't riding that distance. They were just sending in these little things. They had their friends ride the distance. No, every one of them had Garmin watches. We charted every single ride. We charted the route. We charted the elevation. We charted the speed. We charted the heart rate. Okay? There's no way you can escape from these. So they did everything they were supposed to do. Incidentally, I spoke to Esther about this. These are parameters here, elevation, speed, and heart rate, which you could get on your kids. It's non-invasive. Not only that, of course, if you could show them a map of where they rode, I think that'll be great, you know, where they could chart it. And not only that, the relationship between exercise and function is not hell of well charted in kids. And I was just thinking, if you could do that, you'd be into a whole new era of research. In other words, you'd be able to begin to say how much exercise does what, okay, in a kid. This shows you how much exercise does in an adult, but I'd really like to know what happens to their heart rate, what happens to everything in them when they exercise, and I think it would be a lovely thing to measure. Anyway, that's all up to you. When they were at home, we put these bracelets on them, or anklets, whatever you do, you know, like the cops do, and we measured, these are the 3 groups, when they did no exercise, light, moderate, hard, very hard, their heart rate zones, and you see, you can't tell the difference. There's no way you can tell the difference between these 3 groups. Amazing. And we're also measuring everything. These are all coming out probably in the next 2 years, but everything, the immunology, the muscle biology, we're doing multi-omics, we're doing stool, urine, saliva, single nuclei, bulk nuclei. So we're going to get a whole picture now of what it actually means to be an exercising adult with and without disease. So that's the green group, no disease, preventive action, amber, protective. So we have preventative, we have protective, and we have both protective and maybe causative. No, I think it's complicated sufficiently. I've come to the end of my time here, and maybe the end of my time in other places as well. I wonder if I could end with something by Robert Frost, an American poet who got recognized in Britain. So he sort of follows my lifespan. And you remember the poem, "The woods are lonely, dark, lovely, dark, and deep. But I have promises to keep. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." Thank you for your attention. You've been lovely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lazarus, for that really thoughtful presentation. I'm sure we all learned a lot. We do have some time for questions, so both from the audience here, if you want to raise your hand, we'll run a microphone to you. If you're online, you can put it through the Zoom Q&A, and we can read that here as well. So we have about a few minutes for questions here. I think I see a hand there. No? Oh, maybe no.
Hey, my talks must be improving. Great. Thanks.
Any questions? I'm just going to give a minute here.
First of all, hello. Hey. First of all, thank you very much for all information. So meaningful.
Thank you.
In addition to your 3 main pillars, have you identified another factor that determines the final results in your research. With this, I mean, I have read some other different researchers mentioning the importance of being exposed to the sunlight.
Yes, I mean, yes, it's not because I don't know the answer. I don't want to be rude. I think the idea that there is one factor is so simplistic. The complexity of biological systems are easy the same as looking at the complexity of the universe. It's just another universe in here. And when I hesitated, I was going to go on to show you that what's happening in your body is a total interaction of all these processes going on. We must not think of ourselves when we age as a brain, as a heart, as a lung, as a spleen. That is all disease stuff. That was done by René Descartes, you know, cogito ergo sum, which is all rubbish. It doesn't, and it's a disease visualization of what it is, of what is in fact a complete organization. You see, let me just say, I want you to go to any physiology book that you can, and I want you to find out from that physiology how I moved from a 50-year-old over here to 70, well, no, how much am I? 88-year-old over here, in which I'm still functioning, but at a decreased rate. So I'm doing it somehow. The aging process is integrating everything, even though it's shrinking. So just imagine that. Think of if you had a watch, and the watch was shrinking as it got older, and yet it kept time, okay? You wouldn't say, oh, that's because the spring is working. Or you say, what's going on here? How come my brain is, as you can tell from the way I talk, my brain is going. I know my heart is going because my maximal heart rate is going down. I know my muscles are going because I've shown you. I've known my liver is not functioning because I can't drink. How did all that happen? Okay? And that is what we got to begin to think about biological systems. We are not parts. We are just an integrated whole, and we mustn't break it down. Please, don't do that. The way physiology, oh, I can see I'm going to get in trouble here. The way physiology is taught is not the way the way the body operates. Okay? It's okay if I got heart trouble and I can cut out the heart, that makes sense. But this is a totally different thing we're talking about here, okay? Totally different. So please, in your mind, put what you've taught aside, don't throw it away, put it there, but integrate everything. You know, you remember the food, the exercise, the mind, all of that is just, and again, you can't enter, you say, well, what I'll do is I will affect your mind. How are you going to make my mind operate when it hasn't got the body to move it? Because that's the way the mind expresses itself. Are you going to say, well, somebody who's in the chair and has got a beautiful brain? We're talking as a population. We're not talking about geniuses here. We're not talking about Einstein. We're just talking about people. How are you going to do that? How are you going to exercise the mind if you don't exercise the body? I mean, the concept is so clear, and yet I cannot get some of my colleagues to even begin to understand. I'm on to a rant, I'm stopping.
We do have a couple online questions. One quick one maybe longer. So the first one is just, what is the title of your book and where can we find it?
Oh, the title of my book. Oh, yes, you should try and get hold of it. Make Me Rich, remember? I'm earning so much money from that book, I don't even know why I continue. What's that? I know Elon Musk phoned me the other day and said, would I like to invest? But anyway, it's the Lazarus strategy, and it's how to age well and wisely. And it's written, I don't know, in the way I speak. Does that make sense? It's not a tome. It's a lovely read. In fact, I read it all the time because I'm the only one who does, and I just feel better.
Well, we can put that out in the resource list that we send out. And the second question is, you touched on it a little bit, but there's a lot of educators here, a lot of researchers, both in the room and online, that work with middle school and elementary school students. And based on what you've learned, we got this from Elias online. What do you recommend we might measure to start learning more about the effects of elementary or middle school bicycling programs on what you've just talked about today?
What physiological parameters to measure?
Or they're just wondering what you would recommend they start measuring. So I know you mentioned heart rate, maybe looking at where they're riding.
Yes.
What might you add based on what you've heard so far?
It's difficult. Well, it's difficult with adults as well, but it's even more difficult with children because you don't want to be invasive, as you know. I mean, I'm not telling you things which you don't know. You know much more than me. I mean, the only reason I'm up here is because I know a little bit more physiology than you. But if we chose another subject, I'd be sitting there and you'd be talking here. So I don't pretend that I know very much more than you do. I mean, I have no testosterone anymore. Oh, yes, there it is, just by my ankle, so before it disappears. What should you measure? Well, the thing is that definitely, I think a gammon watch, if it's not there already, okay, because that's going to give you all kinds of information, and it's going to give the kids all kinds of information. I just love the way the maps come out, so when you take them somewhere riding, it comes out the pictures, and you can see, and you can say, well, and the heart rate, as you know, I'm telling you things, and your heart rate over here went up, and your heart rate went down here, so definitely those. I think also you can begin to try and take them up hills, okay? So you can stimulate their heart a bit more. Because remember, exercise is like a medicine in that there is a dose response. You remember what I showed you? Certain exercises, you get a certain response. Higher exercises, you get a response. So although you shouldn't tell them that, the kids, I think you should try moving them up the scale just to see what would happen, as I said before, because there's no data on this, and this data would be so hard. What I mean is it's real data. It's data produced by a machine. You know how far they went, you know their ages, you know everything about them, and you can begin to correlate that then with what you're doing to them. And where was the lady? She said, how do you measure outcomes? Well, this is a wonderful way of measuring outcomes in terms you've got something, exercise, and of course on top of that you can do mental stuff and all the rest of the stuff that's and their food intake, because I think, was it Rex or someone, I can't remember, who said that food intake went down? Who was it? Food intake went down when they exercised, is that right? So that's, all of these things automatically just are integrated. And I think any non-invasive method you got like this would be a great way of measuring them, and there are many now. And then you would be able to chart in real terms what is happening as these exercises. And the other thing, and I want to repeat this so you know it, but I think it's so important to repeat it. We're not trying to make Bolt sprinters, there's only one Bolt, we can't make another one if I can put. We're not trying to do that. What we're trying to do, of course, is get everybody here in the schools, in the rooms, operating at the level that's sufficient exercise in order to produce the results we want. That's what we want. And you've got to think about how what you teach these kids spills over into their adult life. I think also and then Esther's probably going to kick me off stage, is that I think it's funny when people in the society we live in, so like, I am an individual and nobody's going to do it and I'm going to do it. Yes, of course. If you were living on an island by yourself, that would make sense. Please do it. But in these lifestyle things, because you have the choice, right? You have a choice. You affect yourself. That's fine. You want to affect yourself. You don't want to do it, great. But then you affect your partner. But then you affect your kids. So you're going to say, I'm not going to adopt this lifestyle because I think my kids will look after me. So you have kids so they can look after you because you don't want to adopt the lifestyle. So it goes to your friends. From your friends goes to the health system. From the health system goes to my nation. I really cannot think of anything more interesting and better than you are all striving to do. You have my admiration, whatever that is worth. Thank you.